We watch a lot of horror movies together now.
We watch not as many as I would like and more than you would like. Is that accurate?
I think we watch the exact amount I would like.
Oh, maybe we can bump it up.
It feels like we should bump it up.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Alison Brie.
I'm Dave Franco.
We're here with Letterboxd.
To talk about films that we've seen together. The first movie that I remember us watching together that had some significance was Moonrise Kingdom, which we saw twice in theaters together.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, we saw it in Burbank. One of those times.
Sure. Wes Anderson, I think, has been a favorite of both of ours.
Definitely.
From the beginning. And I think 2 different times we have gone through his entire catalog.
Full catalog, rewatch, yes.
But Moonrise Kingdom, maybe we loved it so much just because, like, we were falling in love and we were watching
falling in love, and they're dancing on the beach.
Paul Thomas Anderson, just to go from one Anderson to the next. I think he's been a shared favorite since the beginning.
Definitely.
My one memory from going to see Phantom Thread in the theaters. We both adore Phantom Thread, and I remember that movie.
It's my favorite of his movies.
I remember you said that when the movie ended, and I was like, I loved it so much, but I was like, when's the last time you saw There Will Be Blood? And you're like, it's been a while. So we went home, and we watched it that night, and you were silent. You were silent the whole movie, but I could feel that you were engaged. And the movie ended, you just stood up and gave it a slow clap.
And then we were in the bathroom brushing our teeth, and I was like, that Daniel Day-Lewis.
And I was like,
he might be the best actor of our generation.
Like, don't say that to anyone outside of this bathroom.
As if it's a new idea. Don't go telling anybody how you discovered this actor, Daniel Day-Lewis. He's great in There Will Be Blood. This was 3 years ago.
Yes. When we met, I had never seen American President.
You had never seen The American President. My all-time favorite movie, and I got to show it to you for the first time. Well, obviously, it's an incredible movie. Aaron Sorkin wrote it.
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner directed it.
Exactly.
Annette Bening is so incredible in it. I think her performance is the quintessential performance that's doing it all. She's grounded, she has great comedic timing. Romance is incredible. Michael Douglas, their chemistry. You got that Sorkin writing, it's like the precursor to The West Wing. Very much so with Martin Sheen is like playing the aide to the president, not the president yet. I mean, it's just like my comfort movie. I've
How
watched
many times do you think you've
over
seen it?
100 times.
At least.
I mean, you were out of town last week. I watched it 3 times.
There are weeks where you will watch it every single night going to bed.
This is correct, yes. That was last week while you were away.
You've seen it 100 times all the way through. You've seen it 1,000 times in pieces.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I recently worked on a show with Annette Bening called Apples Never Fall, and we did a screening night. Sam Neill organized these screening nights, and we watched it with the full cast, and then I was nervous. There was like an edge to me being like, shh, don't talk through this part, she's gonna say her big line. Like, I felt defensive.
Right before you did that show with Annette Bening, we were on a press tour together for a romantic comedy, and so The American President kept coming up as your favorite movie, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they were like, hey, do you wanna be part of this Annette Bening series? And I think you manifested that.
I think so too.
Yes.
I remember sharing with you a couple movies that you hadn't seen, and we sort of had like a Patrick Swayze night, and we watched Dirty Dancing.
Great flick.
And we watched Ghost. Your reaction was this, that's Ghost? I was like, it's a kooky movie, but everyone's so good. Whoopi's incredible. Demi Moore's crying a single tear. She's got her beautiful bowl
the
cut.
single tear, her and Denzel.
Patrick Swayze's so good. To me, it's like an iconic movie from the 90s that I was like watching on cable constantly. But then Dirty Dancing, you really enjoyed.
I do remember loving that. My favorite movie that you had probably seen?
I had seen Stand By Me.
Also Rob Reiner.
That's right, we connected over the fact that I guess our favorite director is Rob Reiner.
I guess so.
We never think about it that way, but our favorite movies that we've seen the most.
I know. He had one of the greatest runs of all time with those 2 movies, Princess Bride, Misery, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men. But yeah, Stand By Me, I still consider my favorite movie ever. I watched it when I was probably way too young, having older brothers. There's something about like younger actors who are so good. It's just so pure and free, and the 4 main actors in that are just perfect.
Prior to falling in love with The American President, The Princess Bride was the #1 movie. When I was in high school, I watched it every day. And I just watched it a week ago. Again, it was just like reciting all the lines. It's so good. That's a great movie because obviously it's a comedy, but people are playing it really straight. Yeah. Robin Wright is doing like amazing dramatic acting. Christopher Guest as the 6-fingered man is doing a masterclass in like subtle villain acting. It's so subtle what he's doing in that movie. You don't think about that. Inconceivable, one might say.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable.
Can I ask you what movie you saw that blew your mind?
Whoa. I mean, probably like Pulp Fiction.
Sure.
I saw that when I was in high school. Everything about Tarantino and the way his work is so splashy and exciting and was way racier than something probably that I should have been watching. So it felt dangerous, and obviously it's out of sequence, and then you feel like you're putting it together for a high school age person. That was really exciting.
My first job ever, I was working at a mom and pop video store when I was 14, and I looked about 9, and it was 1999, considered one of the best, if not the best movie year of all time. It was actually illegal for me to be working there at that age, and so they paid me by allowing me to take home as many movies as I wanted. And so this was like my film school. And so I remember the 2 that really kind of blew me away were Being John Malkovich and Fight Club. Being John Malkovich, like Spike Jonze's first movie, he comes out of the gate with that, with just like the most inventive, crazy concept ever. To this day, I just aspire to do weird shit because of that movie and because of him and everything he's done since. And then Fight Club was just like a mind fuck where that movie goes, and like kind of the reveal at the end, you're just like, oh wow, you can do that?
Yeah. I honestly think if I were really to go back, it would be Kevin Smith movies. Because in middle school, you know, we all watched
Clerks?
I think we
Mallrats
started with Mallrats,
Yes.
and we loved it so much, and then we like found out about Clerks and its existence, and we had a friend's like older brother rent it for us from Blockbuster, and we went to my friend's house after school because no parents were gonna be home. Like, it genuinely felt dangerous to hear the stuff they were talking about. It was an example of you could make a movie for very little money with your friends, just about hanging out and gossiping, pretty much. And I do think it really sparked my love for independent film, for just seeing like how low budget you could make something for. In black and white, we felt somehow very mature, having access to it.
I remember when we met Kevin Smith at Sundance, and I've never seen you that starstruck in your life.
It's true, I was a little bit speechless.
When we first met, I've always been a very big horror fan, and you were dipping your toe in every once in a while.
I feel like I would tell you that I would get too scared, so you started to lure me in with like very artistically satisfying horror movies that you knew I would like. The original Goodnight Mommy, and It Follows. I remember it was a big deal when you showed me Hereditary, because I had heard how scary it was, and you really convinced me that the artistry was worth the scare.
What do you remember about that experience?
That I made us watch it on a Sunday afternoon with the lights on, but we somehow timed it wrong, so the sun went down halfway through watching, and as it was getting scarier, it got darker, so the plan totally backfired.
Do you remember being terrified while watching that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ideal horror movie watching conditions for me, well, first and foremost, if I had my druthers, we'd always go to the theater to see the horror movies, like you should for Together. It's so much more fun to watch a horror movie in the theater,
Yeah.
and I also think safer. You know, like when we're watching a horror movie at home, the thing could get me. If I'm in a theater with a lot of people, it feels safer.
We made a horror movie together called The Rental that I directed and you starred in. The villain in that has a very realistic human face mask and kills people with a hammer. And I kept the mask, and at one point in time I was like, I'm gonna wake her up by standing over her wearing the mask, holding the hammer. And then I realized that's the only way we would end in divorce.
It would not have gone well.
That would not have gone well.
But like a week after we got home from shooting that movie,
Yeah.
you were out of town, and I got home one night from, I think I was at a concert with friends, so it was kind of late at night. I was totally alone. I walk up to the front door, and there's a hammer laying against the front door, and that was terrifying.
Do we know how that got there?
Our handyman came by
Sure.
to do some work.
Sure.
It was like, because that object is like a normal household item, but you had made it terrifying. And I messaged you immediately being like, did you do this? Are you doing this to me? Another time you tried to get me to watch The Exorcist, which I've seen before and still consider one of the scariest movies. You tried to get me to watch it when we were on vacation and we were staying in like a little cabin in the middle of the woods. And we made it like, not far, nothing really scary. She was like peeing on the rug and I was like, I can't go to the bathroom by myself. I can't go to the bathroom by myself.
What I do remember though, when we first met, even though you claimed not to be a big horror fan, 2 of your favorite movies were horror movies.
Well, thrillers.
Silence of the Lambs.
That's one of my all-time favorite
Thriller
movies.
horror-y.
Yeah.
And then
Alien.
Alien.
Yeah.
Totally.
I know. And The Shining, I do really love, and Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Iconic horror movies I love. Yeah. I just get scared.
The one that I showed you that you got genuinely mad at me about,
Speak No Evil,
the original, where we actually both went in not knowing what it was.
It's a testament to that film that for most of the movie you're thinking, oh, this is the horrors of cultural misunderstanding. Like, this is almost a farce. This is kind of funny, I'm laughing. And by the time that movie ended, I turned to you and I said, how could you do this to me?
How could you do that to me? I was just as affected, but when
it was your fault.
It was my fault. And also when a horror movie affects me like that, I'm like, ooh, this is a win.
It was
because
really
it's very
good.
rare that it'll like really seep in that deep.
And I agree. I thought about that movie for weeks after, in a good way.
Yeah.